welcome back to the BrainFit show. This is the show where we talk about all things brain fitness, address some of the biggest myths surrounding the human brain, and help you in your quest to build the best learning brains. So joining me once again, Ian, are my co-host Ellie.
Hello.
And BrainFit's founder,
Hello,
Cheryl.
Ian. Hi, Ellie.
Okay, so today we are talking about movement. So more broadly about your 5 different senses, a bit about movement and how movement can actually help you learn better, surprisingly. Right?
Yes, not surprisingly, I'm a physiotherapist, but yes, movement is very closely linked to learning as well as intelligence. So very interesting topic for me personally.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, okay, what do you think is a good starting point?
I think from the 5 senses, so we are all familiar with the 5 senses, so
Right.
they are?
Sight, taste, smell, touch, hearing.
That's right. But I think when we talk about movement, we have to talk about 2 additional senses, which I don't think people know about as much as they should, or and because these 2 additional senses are some of the most closely associated with the learning foundation of what we need for learning. So they are proprioception and the vestibular sense. You want to talk about that?
Maybe we can give like a brief rundown before the physio does a thing.
Yes.
So maybe you want to tell us about proprioception?
Yeah, I guess perception is about your awareness of where your limbs are. For example, when you close your eyes, are you aware that your right arm is here or your left arm is here, And it's basically, if you are balancing, right, on one leg, for instance, right, are you still aware or able to control your body in that posture? Right, that's one. It's also, when you are doing certain movement activities, are you able to coordinate your right and left well? So that's how your proprioception will affect the way you move as well.
Yeah, and I think at this point we also want to clarify that it's a misconception that our senses are accurate. The perception that we have of that sense of where my hand is, that everybody assumes that of course you know where your arm is or where your leg is. It's not true. Some of us sit here and we may not know. The kids who are fidgeting, for example, right? They are moving to give the body more inputs of where they are in space. Some of them actually have to fidget to remain stable. Right, but to an outsider, it would be, why are you fidgeting so much, right? But actually, they are doing that in an attempt to send more signals into the brain because that perception is weak. So
It's
I think that's
the
important.
information coming in from the external environment is the same. So for example, we all smell the same things, but we might associate it with different things, right? So it's sort of similar with...
Exactly. It's like why I hate durian.
Same.
And people who think that's what's wrong with you, right? So you're right. So durian smells the same, but when it hits me, it's awful.
I think we can see some of this proprioception learning even taking place as young as babies, right? When you see such behaviors such as them trying to reach out to their toes when they're lying down. So these are them exploring, their limbs. So that is developing their proprioceptive system as well.
That's right, and that's why we say activities like milestones like crawling. It's so important, right? Because some babies just sit and watch, but when you are crawling, imagine the amount of proprioception work that is going on, right? Because you are putting weight on your limbs as well. And one of the best strategies, right, to build up proprioception for the kids who do not perceive it accurately, so that would be one of the strategy that we use, is to actually make the muscles work hard. Right? Because as you are exerting, you are actually then building up that sensory inputs into the body. So a young baby who is crawling is sending massive amounts of proprioceptive input or building up that. So which is why early years are so important, because it's really building those important foundations that a child would need.
Right. And I mean, even into your so-called later years as well, right? So just to give an example, so I mean, at BrainFit, one of our core modules for our program is a physical activity component.
Smart moves.
Smart moves, right? So this works on exactly what you were talking about, helping your body process the inputs that is getting better, becoming just in general more efficient with everything.
Yeah, and it's really important. I just really want to stress the importance, because that internal sense, right, of where my right is, where my left is so important, because you reference that to your body so much, right? When you have a B and a D, for example, a very simple example, right? So it's really differentiated by the bubble to the right or to the left. But if you don't have this internal sense even to reference where's right, where's left, B's and D's can be very confusing. Right? I mean, the reversals problem. So, and that's why, young children at 3, they are mixing their shoes up because they haven't developed the internal sense yet, right? But it is so connected. Some of these internal senses are so connected to daily behaviors, daily tasks, and a lot of learning.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, proprioceptive system is very closely linked to spatial awareness as well, because in addition to all those kind of behaviors that you can see in a child, some very telltale signs can be, is your child always bumping against walls, because they're not very aware of where their arms are at that point,
Yes, and kids who come in with bruises, right? Because they're just crashing, and some of them might not feel that. I mean, it comes to another sense, the tactile sense, which is your touch sense, right? They might have a higher threshold. So the system doesn't receive the input, like for us it may be ouch, but for them is a high threshold before they go ouch, right? So then you have all these senses, your maybe motor clumsiness, because you don't have the proprioception, and then the tactile sense not protecting you, and then the child's crashing themselves, rolling all around, right? In an attempt to kind of feed inputs or to normalize themselves. I think the tactile sense is worth talking about, how it can really cut into our ability to pay attention. You want to give an example? Close tags.
Close tags, yeah, correct, true. I mean, close tags, so something as simple as a close tag on the back of your shirt when you're in class, then suddenly you're like, oh no, my clothes tag is so itchy, then you don't listen to what the teacher is saying.
Exactly.
Then suddenly you start fidgeting, suddenly you start getting scolded, and then it just starts getting snowballs.
Yeah, and the point is that the same clothes tag is giving us different levels of discomfort. To me, I'm totally able to filter it out. My brain doesn't register at all. But to someone, it's the only thing they can focus on, isn't it?
On the other hand, there's a whole other spectrum of kids who needs more of that stimulation.
Yes.
So they require something to hold as they are learning, to just help to regulate that system, right?
And they're hugging everyone, right? They're going at the huggers, right? They come and give you these strong hugs. Or they're touching everything, right? Again, feeding more sensation into the touch system. But it's very distracting, if you need to move, you need to touch, right? How is it helping you to focus, just to sit still and focus? Yeah.
So I guess that's the idea of working on proprioception, right? Is we want to sort of, I don't know if this is the right word, but normalize.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that means, just like all the other sense, like visual, right? We talk a bit about that. Kids who don't see the space as the right space, handwriting is untidy. So that's a perception inaccuracy, right? So these inaccuracies can happen in the body as well, right? Like your body sense is not giving you the right feedback. So that's proprioception, Maybe, the other, we talk about 2 other senses, right? So one is proprioception and the other is the vestibular sense.
Right.
You want to talk about that?
Sure, I can give a very brief description of it. So vestibular sense, in the most basic understanding of it, is your internal sense of balance. So it can affect things like how easily you get dizzy. So something, just to give an example, I get car sick quite often. So you could say my vestibular sense is not the best, because my internal sense of balance, let's say the things in my ears are, not in tandem.
Oversensitive. Probably
right?
registering too much motion, right? As you are, in the car.
Correct. And I think it's quite obvious how this can affect, learning, right? So
I think for one, like a child would avoid doing activities that will really activate that vestibular system. So for instance, things like climbing up,
playground play.
Yeah. So that would affect their exploration. That's one. Spinning.
Sometimes you would think, right, like, oh, my child is very well behaved. They are the very good kid, just watching everyone. But you almost want to think, are they actually not moving? Because the vestibular system is actually uncomfortable, right? So while, sometimes they get missed because they're sedentary. right? Because it's the hyperactive kids that get picked up. But the child who's excessively sedentary, you know, you need to be careful as well if movement itself is an uncomfortable sensation for them.
And I mean, I think it's also becoming more of a thing nowadays, right? Because back when we were younger, we used to go out more, play in playgrounds and stuff, right? Nowadays, most kids have some sort of multimedia device. So inherently, that natural level of like working on your movement, on like moving
Climbing.
around, etc., it's just not there anymore, exactly. So this is why
Yes,
it's a big
so
issue.
and we're seeing more and more of these kids coming in, you know, with this kind of problems, right? Yeah, but just to clarify, you know, so these sense that gives you where you are in space, these motions actually sitting in the inner ears, right? As you have mentioned, so they are in these three semicircular canals, as we said. So there's fluids inside. So when you're kind of tilting your head, let's say I'm swimming with my eyes closed, I actually know how to stay horizontal because it's that fluid in the ear, you know, that tells me, oh, you know, this is the direction that I'm in. So that's the system that we are, you know, the biological system that we're talking about. That's sending signals into the brain to tell us about motion. But with so many implications into learning, right? Because it's also got nerve connections to the eyes, right? We know that, you know, eye tracking, some of the exercises that we do, the kids cannot track their eyes smoothly across the page. They're very callous. They're rereading lines, maybe skipping a question. You want to check the vestibular system because that system helps to stabilize the movement of the eyes as well.
Right. It's sort of why like motion sickness happens in the first place, right? It's because your let's say your two levels in your ears, maybe they are telling you something, but your eyes are telling you something else. So it's like that disconnect can cause sickness, right? So I guess the idea of working on the vestibular system is to help these two systems, so your visual system, just your senses in general, become more in tune with what's going on with what you cannot see.
Yeah, and we know spatial sense is so important because that has a direct academic impact, right? Because if we're talking about the link to learning, then that has a math impact, right? So that's why I always say when we're jumping on the trampoline, you know, you are improving math, right? Because as you're jumping on the trampoline, the body is receiving all these additional motion sensors, and that's helping them to have a better grasp of where they are in space. And math needs spatial processing.
Yeah, and even attention in class, right? So, for instance, if a child has really weak vestibular system, and you find that when they are trying to pick up their books from their bags on the floor again and again and again, this disrupts that balance, and eventually maybe the child is not even aware, but that gets the child disoriented and not be able to pay attention to the teacher.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, I mean, one way to improve it that we talked about just now is, for example, jumping on a trampoline. But understand not everybody has a trampoline. So maybe what are
Come
some
to
other ways?
BrainFit.
I mean, yes,
No.
that is one option.
As you have mentioned, playground play, we're losing that a lot, I think. I think it's kind of not valued, right? I mean, apart from the social interactions, you know, the social skills they're picking up at the playground, I think all these movement, you know, that's challenging these different senses, the body sense as you are kind of like doing a bit of rough and tumble play, you know, the motion that's coming, you know, as you are navigating through different obstacles perhaps, right? That our kids are losing that. And we have to be mindful and to make sure that they have a healthy dose, I think, of sensory inputs into their, you know, daily activities.
Right. So I guess to just wrap everything up, to summarize what we mentioned, so you have your typical 5 senses, let's say it's in one box up here, and then you also have the 2 senses we talked about today, which is your proprioception and your vestibular system. So in order to, you know, just learn better and perform better in daily life, you want these 2 systems to be in tune with one another. And I guess the link between these two, what can help strengthen that link is movement.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Movement, it's great. I mean, there's so many good things about movement. I mean, we haven't even mentioned when you do physical exercises, you are pumping more blood flow into your brain, right? That oxygenation is going to be increased. You're bringing nutrients into the brain. So that itself is already going to give you more attention span, right? Immediately, it can focus your attention. That's why one of the tips, right, we give parents is that during exams, when the kids are, or exam prep, when the kids are sitting for extended periods, you know, doing practice papers, you want to break that after a while, maybe do 50
Jumping jacks.
jumping jacks, yes. So you are really pumping oxygen, you know, into the brain, and when they sit down again, they could be more alert, more focused.
I mean, another reason why you would want to do movement as well is studies have shown that, you know, doing more movement can lead to greater neuroplasticity, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically, just think about it as your brain's ability to stretch. So the more movement you do, the stretchier your brain becomes, the more susceptible it is to new information.
And we can even explain the process, right? So there's this brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a big term, BDNF, scientists call it, but it's like a brain fertilizer. So it grows brain cells. So neuroplasticity, as Ian mentioned, is really about the sprouting of all the brain cells and the connections that they're making. So this fertilizer comes out and enhances that process.
So one of the questions we have for today, actually the only question we have for today, so quite a big one. So since we talked so much about movement, is doing sports alone enough to help improve my learning enough?
I think that's a great question. Okay, first of all, sports is great, right? I mean, we all agree sports is wonderful. It teaches so many skills, you know. I mean, apart from the actual movement skills, you also have the grit, the social, the, you know, the team bonding, the resilience, the sportsmanship, you know, all that skills, you know, life skills, I would say, are very valuable. But if we are talking about it just from the narrow lens of the movement brain, right? Is it sufficient? Then it will be a yes and no, right?
Yeah.
If you are doing sports, specializing in sports, you know, a specific sport. So usually you want to get to the high performance level, right? You will need a lot of repetitive practice on the same skills, right? Like if you're playing tennis, is it the stroke again, backhand, forehand, you know, whatever, right? Or swimming is your stroke. So you want to go faster and faster, be more precise each time. But that will be exercising the same set of muscles, right? And the same movement patterns. So that's not really challenging, because one of the things we always talk about is the constant challenge, right? The 80-20, you have to step up, make something more challenging. And not only that, targeting all the different areas. I guess my issue with sports that is kind of just in one area is that you are then not exposed to all the other movement patterns.
Yeah, for instance, basketball would probably only work on eye-hand coordination, right?
I mean, there's a spatial sense, but it's within that sport, right? Because spatial sense can come in so many different forms, right? I mean, the spatial sense on the trampoline will be quite different, with bouncing a ball, right? So that's important, but you keep doing the same thing. Right, I guess that's...
Maybe it's like just to give an example. So I used to play tennis in school, so for my CCA. So you would think like, okay, it's a ball sport that requires a racket. So surely when I go into ping pong, which is another ball sport with a racket, it can be transferable, right? But no, evidently not, because the movement associated with tennis, the swing and everything, you use more power, use more, just different muscles in general, you know. So you get so used to doing one thing that your other core skills suffer.
Yeah.
So this is the issue of why we say sports alone. So that's not to say sports is not good.
Yeah,
it's just
we love it.
Sports alone is not enough, right? You have to contribute other aspects as well to get holistic.
And I really like your point about transferability, right? So one of the things that we really want the brain training skills to be is to be transferable, right? So we are not practicing any particular movement for any activity per se. Like we're not building the golfer or the tennis player or the table tennis player, right? But it's really improving those core motor planning, rhythm sense, timing, core stability, proprioception, vestibular, that can then transfer to different areas, right? That's why, some of our kids, although our focus is on learning, to make sure that they're a better learner with this set of skills, parents tell us that, they're better at soccer now, but we actually didn't practice soccer, right? But if your spatial sense improve, your processing speed improve, you'll become a better soccer player. So I think that's also the differentiator, where we select the activities, the movement activities that are the foundation. So being at the foundation, then there's more opportunities to transfer across to different activities. And the part I really like, to be honest, one of the best things about BrainFit is that the kids enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right? The Smart Moves component is one of the most popular components. And so it's one avenue that you can improve performance without sitting down to do a paper, right? Another teaching, kind of tuition type of learning, but you're actually engaging in the fun activities and then driving performance.
So just to recap, very close relationship between your 5 senses and the so-called 2 additional senses. So work on your movement, but also do understand that, as we mentioned, movement alone is not enough. You still have to couple it with your other skills, other training, which we've talked about in our previous episodes. Feel free to go back and
your
watch.
auditory skills, your memory, your
math, your
focus.
focus, creativity, etc. Right?
That's why they need a whole brain workout.
Yes, correct. Okay, so thank you once again very much for listening. If you would like to find out more about what we do, about our programs, or if you have any of your own questions that you would like to ask us, where can they do so, Ellie?
Visit us at our website on www.brainfit.com.sg or follow us on our socials.
Right, so thank you once again for tuning in, and join us next time in our quest to help you build the
Best
learning.
Brain.
Bye-bye.